There you go. That's my 15-minute intro. But for the person you've all come here to see, obviously, why don't we bring on stage Dame Laura Kenny. Laura, how are you doing? Your mic's all, you ready to go?
I'm assuming it's working. Am I working? Am I on?
Can you hear all right at the back? How's the fitness at the moment? You're saying you did a bit of running as well.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've started running. I mean, I call it, so like with Albie, I said I was exercising because you get caught in this funny, I don't want to promote like, you know, when you're pregnant and saying that it's safe for everyone because it's really like what you've done before is what is deemed safe. And obviously I was at a high level before, so for me, going out for 3-4 hours is what I was doing anyways. But just this time, it has felt really different in terms of, obviously, with everything that's happened pre-falling pregnant this time, I feel really vulnerable, and it just feels a lot scarier. And like, I obviously promote going out on the road. You know, I love going out, fresh air, riding my bike. But for me, just at the minute, I haven't quite got past the point where I feel completely okay with this pregnancy. So I've just been in the garage or running, like you say, because running has been my way of getting out of the house rather than just using the gym at home. So yeah, I'm going to do my first 10K on Sunday.
Are you?
Yeah. I mean, if I want to go under an hour. I mean, really, I want to do like 56 minutes, but I'll say under an hour just in case I don't make it.
And also in about 4 weeks' time, there's a Welsh Pool 10K. You could come down and do that.
Well, maybe, yeah. Well, let me see if I actually survive this one first.
But it's great. I mean, obviously, you know, because I can only imagine it, you know. But as an Olympian, you must be, you know, you've got to try and keep that element of fitness, and obviously it helps with the pregnancy, right? The fitter you are, and so on and so forth. But have you got a kind of like, are you just taking it week by week, as it were?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, day by day, it's just so different. It's just honestly, I mean, with Albie being there as well, obviously this has been different. And if he doesn't sleep very well, or if Jason's been away and I'm sole parent, then it's just really different to how tired I am, to what I can actually do that day. Because obviously Jason's now the British cycling coach, so he's away currently at the Europeans. And like last night, Albie didn't sleep very well. Like he was in our bed, and it was just a nightmare. So when I woke up this morning, I was just like, oh, like when he goes to school, I am going back to bed because that's just how it is. Whereas really, I set my heart on doing 3 hours. So it's just like a fine balance of
3 hours of sleeping instead of 3 hours of
basically, yeah.
You just got to take it one day at a time, as you say.
Exactly.
But it's fantastic news, and really, really chuffed for you. I definitely don't think I've interviewed a dame before. I've interviewed a couple of sirs, but definitely not a dame. Really big honour for me. I mean, do you insist on when you're down the supermarket and places like that? Do you know? Do you kind of say, "Excuse me, person on the checkout, it's Dame Laura Kenny"?
I didn't see you bow when I got onto the stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, not at all. I mean, to be totally honest, when you get the email, I mean, back pre-COVID, it was a letter through the post, but now it's an email when you're getting on it. It just feels so surreal and like so far away from what Jason and I are about that it almost doesn't feel right. Like, I don't know, it's like a funny, I don't know. It's obviously nice to have, but it just doesn't seem like us.
And because you're married to a knight, you're also a lady?
Yeah, so I got to choose, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, so they rang us. Well, I mean, to be honest, I actually missed the first phone call, and then I got a really demanding phone call saying, "You've not replied." And I was just like, oh, I didn't know how to reply. But, so I could either have been Lady Kenny or Dame Laura. If I'd been Lady Laura, I'd have taken it. But why have I got to drop my name?
Lady Laura, I mean, it sounds like you should have a pop career.
Yeah, it sounds like I should have a crown. But no, I didn't like Lady Kenny, so no, I chose Dame Laura instead.
Yeah, I think so, and it kind of puts you on that level field, doesn't it, with Jason as well, that kind of like...
Yeah, well, I don't know, it feels like my achievement.
Exactly. I suppose then, so for people getting onto cycling, people who might not have been onto Wikipedia or have been under a rock for the last few years and not seen the media and all the rest of it. The greatest ever female Olympian, bar none. 6 Olympic medals, 5 of them gold, having won both the team pursuit and the Omnium at 2012 and 2016 Olympics. Anna Madison at 2020, along with a silver medal from the team pursuit at the 2020 Olympics. You are both the most successful female cyclist and the most successful British female athlete in Olympic history. In total, you've won, this might have gone up by now, I don't know, 63 medals at UCI, UEC Europeans, UCI World Cups, Olympic, Commonwealth Games, 44 gold. It's bananas. And you're 30 years old. I mean, that deserves a round of applause, doesn't it, I think? Wow. That's incredible. I think it's incredible how much you've packed into those 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not just down to me and the bit that I do. There's been so many people that have played a massive part in that. I mean, it only sounds mad because you're reading them all in one go. Really, it was over quite a long period of time.
Yeah, sure. Sort of 12 years or so, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since your first British senior title. But dialing it back again, if we just kind of take it back a little bit, or right the way back, in fact. One thing I didn't know, but before obviously doing some research, and when Alan discussed it, said that, Dame Laura's coming, I was starting to look into it and went back into your family history. And obviously you were born in Harlow, but with a collapsed lung and diagnosed with asthma at birth, at a very early age. And you had to give up your first love, which was trampolining?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, as a parent now, I appreciate what my mum and dad went through at the time. But yeah, so I was born premature, so I was 4 weeks early, and had a collapsed lung at the time. But just to know what my mum and dad had gone through, was actually quite, I don't know, like an eye-opener, I guess. And I mean, I was lucky enough that I could go back to that hospital because they redid it, and I actually opened it for them back in 2012. Wow. Yeah, like the unit, obviously, where I was when I was little. But yeah, then that's why I ended up with asthma, because my mum and dad always used to say I breathe like a pig, like it sounded like a snorting noise constantly. And then I was in and out of the GP for ages, like years. And then I was 6 when they said, I think you've got asthma, but they can't, I mean, I don't know what the rules are now, but at the time they couldn't diagnose you until you were 8. So I didn't actually find out until I was 8 that I actually had asthma.
Wow. Are you asthmatic now, by the way?
So now it's sports-induced, because they do say that you can grow out of it. And so now I only ever use an inhaler, like, for bike riding purposes, because, like a velodrome, I don't know how many people have been in a velodrome, but it's so dusty, because obviously the air is barely moving. And so it's only in that setting that it gets me. Like, because obviously we're in tunnels and stuff, warming up. And so, like, that's when it gets set off. That's when it's at its worst.
And you've got to be careful, obviously, with all the kind of doping regulations and all the rest of it. Presumably, you've got to kind of, register all that beforehand, and it's got to be checked. They've got to check your pump and all the rest of it, have they?
Yeah. I mean, we're under like real strict. So every single day, I have to give her an hour a day where someone could just knock on my door and come and test me.
That's the whereabouts, is that?
Yeah. So you're under like a really strict kind of, I don't know, guidelines, whatever, that we have to be under. But then, any medication that you take, so some things are fine. So like paracetamol, you can also just take, and that's fine. You just write on your form that you've taken paracetamol. But inhalers and like anything, I guess, more than just your bog standard medication that you could buy at like a supermarket, you have to register. And you just have to go through your doctor, and he signs it off, and then it goes off to the UCI, and then that's it, then you can use it.
It's interesting, isn't it? And it's just one of those other things that you've just got to remember, and obviously, with the way the family situation and all the rest of it, you've got to remember, are you going to be there if you're taking Albie to school and all the rest? It must be quite difficult to manage all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. And like Jason and I are absolute carnage. But
And growing up in the household, obviously your sister, Emma, who is your elder sister, you're running around together, you're doing things, you're getting into sport, etc. How did you both get into cycling? Was that from a family point of view, or was it through other clubs?
I mean, it was through family. Well, it was through family and club. But my mum, basically, in year 2000, she just decided this was it. Like, she was going to start losing weight, and she chose cycling and spin classes, like, as a way of doing that. She lost 8.5 stone in a year and a half.
Wow.
So it wasn't just like, I'm just going to do this, you know what I mean? And it was like a whole lifestyle change. It wasn't just riding a bike that got her there. but she didn't exercise at all before riding a bike. And then that was it. Like, so I was 8, and it just became such a massive part of our life. And like, my dad was the typical, like, Monday to Friday at work dad. The only time we'd really get to see him was at the weekends. And so that became the family go-to. Like, so every weekend we would go out and ride our bikes. And then one thing led to another. It started off just as like a mountain bike down in Lee Valley, because obviously I grew up down south, to then going around the country, travelling to races here, there, everywhere. And then obviously Emma progressed faster than me. Like, she went through the squads because she is 2.5 years older than me. And so she started going off like on the British cycling, because British cycling works like a scouting system, like it does in, like, say, football. So she got onto like the first squad, and then she kind of moved away to the point where my dad had to start taking her to races, and my mum would take me, because obviously she was almost turning professional before I was. And then once I became of the age, then we started travelling around together then, and we started doing it together again.
Yeah. Did you learn a lot from Emma? Because she was national junior road race champ, right? She was riding for Dolmans Bowls as well, Continental. Was that a big help to you, having Emma there?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's like second sibling syndrome, isn't it? Like, the second one is always better. Like, it's just like...
She's not here, she's not.
So when I was 15, I decided I'm going to be a track sprinter. I mean, why I decided to sprint? I mean, physique-wise, you'd think, no, I'm not sure about that. But I really enjoyed the sprint programme. And 15, they put me on, like, British Cycling put me on to the junior sprint squad. And then that was it, really. I think from that point onwards, I thought, no, like, I think this is a career. And like, UK Sport do start funding you at that level as well. So I'd already started to see how it could fund a career. And then that was it, to be honest. Like, I just never looked back. I was a product of British Cycling. I just went through the system.
But as you'd expect, given your success, at such an early stage, your first track championship or European title was at 18 in the team pursuit. What do you remember of that first big medal, as it were?
I don't really remember much. Everything seemed at the time like such a whirlwind, because I'd moved to Manchester, so obviously that was the first time moving away from home. And my mum and dad couldn't come with me at the time, well, because I mean, they were both working, so it was difficult. And I remember I had a little Mini, and they loaded up my Mini and kind of sent me on my way. And so British Cycling give you a flat that you like, you don't have to pay rent for. For the first couple of years, they give you a flat, they give you a place to stay. And I remember moving into this flat just like, what am I going to do? Like, I had no idea. My mum just literally looked after us to the day that I left. Even so much as stupid things like turning the washing machine on. Like, I'd never turned a washing machine on.
Did you not?
No.
Wow.
I mean, there's some bad stories about what happened. I mean, I've set fire to a few things in the past. But the two worst things was and it wasn't actually my fault, I'm going to say, okay? I set fire to a jacket potato in the oven.
At least it's in the oven.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
but that happened because the people before me just left fat in the... I didn't think to take the tray out, so that set fire. And then I blew a microwave up.
Did you?
By a complete accident with a sweet potato, because I misread the instructions. She told
Instructions
me,
on a sweet potato?
No, it was from my nutritionist. She
Okay.
just gave me a
right.
recipe.
Yeah.
And she said 5 minutes each side. And I stuck it in for 10 minutes, and it set on fire.
Seems logical.
And you don't need tin foil on it to set it on fire. Or blow the microwave door off.
Let's go straight into 2012.
Yeah.
Now, Ed Clancy's been here, Alice has been here, and they just said it was literally just the most incredible, bonkers whirlwind in the UK, in a tumble dryer of a year. How was it for you?
I mean, yeah, the same, to be honest. I mean, everything for me happened so fast. So I was junior world champion in 2010. They asked me to go to the Worlds in 2011, and we go on to win. And at the time, I'd never even thought about the Olympics. I was part of this programme that my council ran, where they had 20 12-year-olds, like, I don't know, like raise these flags or whatever for each borough that the Olympics was going to have an effect on. Because obviously I grew up like only half an hour away from that velodrome. And obviously at the time you're thinking, well, none of these kids are probably going to make it to the Olympics. Like, it was insane. And it never crossed my mind that 2012 was going to be the Olympics I go to. It was always 2016 was the target. And then when we won in 2011, obviously the team pursuit was the Olympic event. And it was from that point that I thought, hang on a minute, like I'm on some sort of fast track. And I could feel it within British cycling. Like they were putting me in, like we had a whole aerodynamics team that you have to go and have meetings with, and skin suit fittings, and everything's done to like the T, you know, like it is. I mean, we talk about marginal gains. I cannot even explain to you how in depth they went for that Olympics. And all of a sudden I'm like getting pulled from pillar to post because I'm in all these meetings that before that 2011 win I wasn't in. And I was just like, wow, like they actually genuinely think I'm going to go to the Olympics here. And so when obviously it happened and you get the letter saying like you're going to the Olympics, I honestly couldn't believe it, because it is a dream come true. Like I was that kid that was like, I want to be Olympic champion at school, and everyone was like, what's that? And like I was that kid that was constantly like, sport is my thing. So it was just a dream that just happened. And for my first one to be at home, I couldn't have wished for anything more.
Talk us through, obviously you've got there, you've got to the velodrome, you've got to the Olympics. What is it like when you arrive there and however many billion people are watching this feed, you're sat on your bike, you're on the boards, you're about to go?
Well, we do it every single day. It didn't
Simple as that?
Yeah, it felt like nothing else. And the only thing, like I remember before the 500, so obviously in the Omnium, so the Omnium, for those that don't know, it was over 2 days, 6 events. And at the time, it all tallied up. So you got 1 point for a win, 2, 3, all the way down. And when you got to the 500 metre, which was the last event, which at the time as well was my best event, I needed to, so Sarah Hammer, the American girl, was winning by 4 points. So I needed to win the 500 and she needed to come fourth. And I just never felt anything, like I honestly sat on the bike and I was like, I'm going to win. And like you don't get it very often where you are that confident that you almost know the outcome. For the chances of her coming fourth were like slim to none. She'd finished second to me in the 500 time and time again that year. But I don't know, I had this sense of it's going to happen. And I remember it felt like forever, because obviously when you cross the finish line, your little number comes up and it came up 1. And I was thinking, well, that's 1 job done. And then I was just waiting like, and then it came up 4. And I just remember thinking, I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe this has actually happened to me.
It's absolutely incredible, isn't it? And I mean, what's it like once you've achieved that? And what's it like standing on the podium? Because for every single person in this room, there's no Olympic champions here. No, none of us can even think what that's like.
I don't know. That one was different. Like at London 2012, and the Omnium was really different because it was a shock. Like I never thought.
Yeah.
I never went into that day thinking, oh, this is my title. The team pursuit, we'd broken the world record 6 times up until that event. So there was part of me that was like, as long as it comes together, it will happen. But standing up there, I don't know, on your own, in the place where you feel like you've grown up, was just something else. And I remember looking up and seeing so many people that I had, like family members, and it was my best friend's birthday as well, in the crowd. Like, it was just a feeling like no other.
It's incredible. You're in London, you're double Olympic champion, you're 20 years old. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I mean, it changed my life. Like, it genuinely did change my life. From that point onwards, like, I couldn't just go and ride my bike anymore. Like, I became a different, like, a role model. And, like, I guess I got thrown into it because I never expected that to happen. Nobody knew me before.
No, exactly. But following 2012, I did just want to delve into a little bit because, people know you as a track cyclist, really, and you, as a track Olympian. But you were quite successful on the roads. So after post 2012, in fact, very successful. You were national road race champion. GB, you rode for Wiggle Honda. Yep. And sometimes you hear about track cyclists who've gone onto the road or vice versa, and they say they're doing it to complement their racing. But you actually really did get stuck in at road racing. Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't go that far.
To be national champion, it's pretty...
Yeah, I mean, the national, that was a fluke more than anything, I think, to be totally honest. I got seriously lucky. So in that race, right, in fact, it wasn't too far from here somewhere.
Oh, it's Abergavenny.
Oh, was it Abergavenny?
Yeah, get the AA map out again.
We're near.
It's only about 100 miles away, but anyway. South Wales. South Wales.
Right, so... Lizzie, so I don't know whether people know very much about the people involved, but basically, Lizzie Deignan was Armistead at the time, attacks, right? And we're like 20k from the finish. And I thought, well, that's that done, job done. Except, look, for whatever reason, everyone was going back to her, like one by one, like they're chasing her down one by one. Well, I had teammates in this race, so like Danny Rowe, Danny King at the time, just rides over to her, and I'm like, oh, well, brilliant, this is me, I don't have to do nothing now, because obviously, once your teammate's in there, you're thinking, well, it's over to them now to try and win this bike race. Except Emma Pooley, who was known as pretty much our best time trialist at the time, just drags me back to the leading bunch. And I was like, well, it's a bunch, like, I'm definitely going to win a bunch sprint now. Like, it was just insane. And I literally just sat there, I didn't do anything, and then won the sprint at the finish. So I think it was a fluke more than anything.
A fluke, just like Mark Cavendish's fluke 36 Tour de France. You obviously, you know, you've got to be there at the right time, in the right place to take the title. But would you say, you know, that, you know, you had a real love for road racing at the time as well, or is it?
No, not
didn't?
at all. No, like, I've never loved it at all, to be honest. I just think, like, you put in your career into so many people's hands. Like, in a road race, there's 200 odd riders. Like, if you go and you ride I'm not even sure what you call them, but the World Cup, say, on the road, there's 200 other females there, and your race can be determined by whether one of them basically crashes you and you fall off. It's just there's so many things that can happen in a road race that I just think there's too many variables. The track doesn't have that. You don't have brakes for starters, so no one can slam on in front of you and you randomly crash into them. Or even worse, someone can just randomly crash into the back of you and take you off. You don't have that in the track. And you only have 20 other riders to deal with.
And it's warm and dry.
Exactly, and there's not a hill in sight.
There's a bit of banking that goes up.
Yeah, and some tracks are worse than others for that.
Yeah. And that must have been a really odd environment. You know, COVID was still on.
I mean, honestly, like, the velodrome was better than it's ever been. I loved it because there was no public. It was just us. and like, they split.
You love the public,
I love
really?
people.
Yeah.
But it's because the whole thing was ours. So when you walked in, you were in a pen. You were literally in a pen. So they had them like metal whatevers that they have at football matches, and you were in one. Like, so not your team, literally you and your bike, and that was it. And because when you go into the velodrome normally at British Cycling, you have to go down and you pick your bike up from mechanics and then you march up the stairs. And to be honest, it is a bit of a pain, like, because you've got to get through all these double doors and you're trying to protect this really nice bike you've been given. Well, you just walked in, it was just there, because they didn't want anyone near each other.
Yeah, but you're a 4-time Olympic champion, so it should be. A little bit as well, just finally as well, about women in cycling. We're talking about women in cycling, obviously, tonight as well. There's a real buzz around women's pro cycling at the moment. Anyone who follows cycling in the Continental and the World Tour, you know, the women's Tour de France Femme last year was amazing. There's more money coming into the women's sport, which is long overdue. I'm sure you'd agree. How important is that to you, seeing young females, women getting into cycling, and also, you know, getting that, for want of a better word, level playing field with the men's sport?
Oh, like, massively important. To me, I could never understand why when we haven't been level. And obviously, I've been really lucky that track cycling is all deemed under UCI, so our prize money has always been the same. So, like, obviously, I could never take away from that. That's been brilliant. But the roadside, I mean, when I first started was, like, beyond diabolical, really. Like, the amount of money people get. Well, my sister, I saw it, obviously, with my sister. And the amount of money you're getting asked to live off of, to give up literally your life to do it, it's just insane. But the step now that they've taken, obviously, is massive. Do I think there's still work to be done? Yes, of course. I think all pro teams should have a women's team. It should be written somewhere in a contract that if you are running a men's team, you have to run a women's pro team too.
Please, everybody, give a massive round of applause for Dame Laura Kenny.